Hi, this is Sarah Mikesell with the Pig Site, working in collaboration with Lifestart Swine. And today we're online with Dr. Chantal Farmer. She is a research scientist with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, based at Sherbrooke R&D Center in Quebec, Canada. Dr. Farmer's research is focused on sow lactation biology. Thanks for being with us today, Chantal.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Very good. Well, we really are excited to talk about this topic today. And it centers around this idea that sow litter size continues to increase. However, sow milk production has not increased enough really to accommodate those additional piglets. And today we want to talk about the use of lysine to stimulate mammary development. And you've conducted some research in this area. So we want to talk about that. But let's start with lysine. What is it and how does it work?
Well, first, let me tell you, lysine is an amino acid, but it's not just any amino acid. It's an essential amino acid, and it's the first limiting amino acid in most swine diets. So it's very important. It's required for the buildup of tissues. So it's essential for growth for the animal, but it's also essential for reproductive functions. So a lot of studies have been conducted to find out what is the requirement in terms of lysine at different stages of the life of the pig. But there's one period that is important and where we did not have enough information on, and that's the end of gestation. From day 90 of gestation onward, you have a lot of fetal growth, but you also have a lot of mammary tissue development. And the more mammary tissue you have at the beginning of lactation, the greater milking potential of that sow. So it's really important to know how much lysine is required in that critical period of the end of gestation. And this leads me to two studies actually that I've done. The first one was in gilts. So what I've done is I've used a normal corn soy diet for my control animals. And my treated animals received 40% more lysine by adding more soybean meal in the diet. So I have to tell people right away, if you add more soybean meal, yes, you increase lysine, but you also alter other amino acid amounts. Protein will go up. So we did not affect only lysine, but 40% increase was really for lysine. So we've fed that increased lysine intake via more soybean from day 90 of gestation to 110. And then we had to euthanize the animals, get the mammary tissue and look at it, do a dissection. And basically, it's quite amazing. You have 44% more of the good milk synthesizing tissue with 40% more lysine in the diet in that critical period of late gestation. That's a 1-to-1 ratio, which is quite amazing. So what it leads me to say is for the gilt, an animal that is still growing, it wouldn't be important to do some phase feeding where she's not fed the same type of feed up to day 90 of gestation and afterwards. So afterwards, either you could, have a top dressing with soybean meal or, different with phase feeding, there's different ways of doing it. I know it's not very popular for everybody, but I think it's a direction that we're going in. If we really want to meet the lysine requirement for the mammary tissue, and obviously not feed it, too much throughout the whole gestation period. So those are results from my first study in growing gilts, gestating gilts. Then I asked myself, is the same also true for a multiparous animal? What we know is that mammary development takes place before puberty, then at the end of gestation, then the sow, after her first lactation, when you wean her, there will be involution of mammary tissue, and it will develop again in the next gestation. But are the requirements different between that first gestation in my gilt and that second or third gestation in an animal that already farrowed before? So I've done a study using sows in second and third parity, and then I've done the exact same treatment. Obviously, the estimated requirements for the multiparous sows are lower compared to the gilts, but then I took that estimated requirements from the NRC and I upped it by 40% using soybean meal. Then when you look at mammary tissue, in theory, I was thinking, well, we'll see something similar. And that's where research is quite amazing, because it doesn't always do what you think it will do.
Right.
There was actually no difference whatsoever. So it's telling me in the multiparous animal, increasing lysine by giving more soybean meal has no positive effect in terms of mammary development. Most likely because that animal is not growing anymore. So it seems that when the gilt is growing, her body is growing, then at the same time, her mammary tissue is growing and she will respond to supplementary lysine. But in the term of a multiparous sow, she's not growing anymore, and it seems that she does not respond at all. And another thing that's interesting is that the mammary development in the multiparous animal is already greater, before you even start to
Right.
give. So they don't have the same baseline either. So this also comes into play. But to me, this is something important to tell producers, that if they're willing to, spend time and money to feed better their gestating gilts, that's where the energy needs to be put, not in the multiparous animals. So in terms of phase feeding, it's really the gilts, the first gestation, where you do need, as of day 90, to give more. In my case, I think it's lysine that has a major impact, but this has to be done with giving more soybean meal to the animal. So I've rambled on for a while.
No, that's really it's interesting that it was different, right, for each of them. And I guess when you think about kind of you talked a little bit about this, but what management changes really should a producer make in light of this? Because you mentioned, a different type of feeding pattern potentially that can be complicated, right?
Yeah, right now, producers are feeding the same diet throughout gestation. But basically what I'm saying is, not in multiparous animals, but when it's the first pregnancy, they should not feed the same thing up to day 90 and after day 90. So starting at day 90, either they can do it automatically and have a second type of feed that's being used with more soybean meal in it, or they can do just a tub dressing with more soybean meal. And it has to be really 40% more lysine. So they have to increase the soybean meal enough to get to that 40%. If it's less than that, most likely they will not see an effect. So it's important to do that increase. So basically, yes, this will change the way to feed the gilts in the first gestation. But I think it's really where we are going now, because, we have such big litter sizes that we need to help the sow to produce enough milk for all these piglets. Otherwise, what's the point? You have a lot of piglets that don't grow enough just because they don't have enough milk from the sow. So
I think producers right now are really thinking about labor, right? And creating a different, a different diet, I guess, adds labor, right? So, but if you can kind of balance it with some of the benefits that you're going to get out of it, I feel like that might help producers be able to justify those costs, right?
yeah, and it's not, in terms of feed, it's not something very expensive. It's soybean meal. So it's not something that you have to pay a lot of money for. It's more in, as you say, the labor, trying to get your system to work, to have two types of feed, in the gestation period, or tub dressing. If the sow is producing more milk, it may cut down on a cost that you would have otherwise, because baby pigs that are suckling will often be given artificial milk. But all these milk replacers are very expensive. So that's a cost that could be reduced if the sow is actually producing more milk for her piglets. So that would be another economic advantage for the producer if the sow is producing more milk. Maybe it will cost less in terms of a milk replacer for the piglets.
Very good. And one final question for you. I know you just finished these two studies fairly recently. What's next for your lysine research? You've always got something in the works, it seems, Dr. Farmer.
Yeah, well, right now I'm starting a project, and anyway, I think it's very neat. I call them the synergy projects because I want to know if we can have additive effects. So right now I'm again giving 40% more lysine with soybean meal in the gilts at the end of gestation. But in lactation, I'm increasing the hormone prolactin, which I know will increase milk yield. And I want to know if the effects are additive. If you have more mammary tissue, then you stimulate that tissue in lactation to give more milk. Will it give even more milk than if you just have the lysine by itself? So for
Right.
a producer, is it worth it to try to have management strategies in lactation to enhance milk yield on top of stimulating mammary development at the end of gestation? Is it worth it? You know, we don't want to get
Right.
them to work for nothing, but if it's worth
Right.
it, then it means, yeah, we add these on to get more milk produced by the sow.
That's exciting stuff. I always appreciate it because you kind of always give us a little sneak peek of what you're working on, which is exciting. Because that's, research is what takes us to the next level. So at any rate, but thank you so much for all the information on these two new studies. That's really interesting stuff to see. So appreciate your time today.
Well, I'm most happy to be here because it's nice to do research and to publish articles, but the bottom line is it helping producers? So this is giving me a chance to be able to assist producers in their, everyday life. So I'm happy for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you again. This is Sarah Mikesell with the Pigsty.